Random things just pop in my head sometimes. And it's always intriguing when spirit is just like downloads information in your mind. If you have had a experience like this, you know what I'm talking about. It's like you might be contemplating something or you might just be doing something random and all of a sudden like this download comes in. And I think the reason the word download makes so much sense to us because it's almost like our brain is a computer system that is open to receiving more information. And when you put something new on a computer or you download it on a computer, it gives it um, more ability to access things, to create things, to work within a new platform. So I'll just use this really weird example. It's not really weird, but like, for example, if you are a photographer, you are going to need to download software onto your computer to help you edit the photos. Or if you are a creator, you're going to have to download things onto your computer that help you to create. So that is really what our brain is a computer system that holds information, and the information that we have received has been based on our interactions, the connections in our life, where we live, the culture we're in, our parents programming, the way they were taught, the school programming that we were in. So if you look at your life as a big web of light, like a big spider web, there's all these different things that have been a part of your downloading into your brain. And the way you function in this world is based on what is downloaded into your brain. So something could have happened when you were 3 years old. Somebody could have said something. You could have had an accident, something, paranormal could have taken place, or, there's so many things that could have happened that could have downloaded or caused you to hold information in your understanding based on that experience. And then without realizing it, your entire life is continuation of that belief that was developed through that interaction. And so there might be things that you are experiencing now that you don't even have the realization that it was downloaded into you when you were a child. And you might be like, why do I keep struggling like this? Why does this keep taking place in my life? And it's because at one point it became a part of your system, your neural network in your brain. And you've held that frequency in a part of your nervous system into your brain and your body. And that has developed a programming in which you run. So when we go through a healing process, what we're doing is we're clearing out old parts of our programming. We are going back and rewiring parts of ourselves that got wired in a certain way. And what we're doing is really coming back to the knowledge and understanding of who we really are. And so in this particular lifetime in 2026, as we are shifting into a higher consciousness, as New Earth is being birthed through us, we are having more and more downloads of our conscious understanding of who we are. So it's like the subconscious and the conscious are working together to help us to come into more of a holistic understanding of who we are beyond the human perception. And we're getting glimpses into the energy beyond the physical form. So we're getting insights to where we come from, what kind of energy we really are outside of our body. We're getting glimpses into the power of our mind, the power of our beliefs, the power of our energy. And this is why you see more and more people stepping into different healing modalities outside of the traditional, possibly mental health or physical health things to find solutions for things that are going on. Now, mental health and physical health services are still very much needed at this time on earth because they do play an important role in this awakening. However, as you know, there might be situations or times where you feel something in your body or symptom is coming up for you, and you go to the doctor and you say, "This is what's going on with me," and the doctor can't find an answer. And this is simply because it's an energetic download in your body. It's something that isn't measurable by the technical, logical understanding of the third dimensional realm. Now, as far as like mental health, like if you were to go in and tell, things are really shifting in mental health, which I'm very encouraged by at this point. But there have been times where you have been able to walk into a place and tell them, "Hey, I see things, or I hear things, or this thing happened to me." And they automatically just label you with a diagnosis. And then you pull in that diagnosis, which then causes this belief about yourself, and then you start to make that your identity, when really it might be that you actually have a spiritual gift and you're not aware of that or how to manage that or use that. So there's so many things taking place in the energetic field that is also impacting the human body, the human brain, the human energy, the human DNA. And so everything is shifting in a consciousness together. Now, outside of the human experience, Mother Earth is also shifting in consciousness. I'll just say they, because that's how Spirit speaks about themselves. So they, the energy of Gaia, is also purging and learning and exploring itself through its own ways. And from the connections that I've had with Mother Gaia, she does not have an ego like a human does, yet we humans tend to portray everything as we do ourselves. So we might look at Mother Earth as an egotistic being or consciousness, but the earth does not have an ego, and therefore it is simply a consciousness, a thought, an existence that creates a physical reality for us to reside on. And so when we're working with Mother Earth, we are working with the energetics of who we are as a physical divine being. And this is why spending time with nature, being in nature, allowing ourselves to ground is such a healing modality for our human existence and for our physical existence, because we come back into the energetic alignment of our higher consciousness in many ways. And so, what is interesting about all of this is how the human is being programmed based on the experiences that are happening around us, and how we're in a shift right now of moving away from an old program or in basically agenda that has been on earth into a new agenda. So we're at the age of awakening. Some might call it the golden ages, where we are shifting out of this conscious, like hijacking, I guess you might say, of the ego mind into a collective awakening into the conscious, the subconscious, what kind of is behind the scenes all the time, but not has not been able to be accessed as much as it is now. And as we are shifting into this consciousness of this awareness of who we are getting information coming at us, and we're becoming more capable of distinguishing whether something is aligned with the reality beyond our human perspective or if it's aligned with an egotistic belief. And the thing that was downloaded into my mind last night that I thought was so very interesting was, with the age of Pisces, we found religion to be very prominent in that, the last 2,500 years particularly, and even before that. But over time, religion came into the egotistic way of kind of pulling into the conscious mind a way to relate with these things that we're awakening to now. but it provided it taught humanity in a way that disconnected ourselves from ourselves to something outside of ourselves. And what Spirit told me really interestingly last night was that part of the biblical text and the texts that were shared thousands of years were actually meant to hold a conscious frequency for humanity to use to awaken and to bring their power back to themselves. But what happened was the egotistic man's mind basically took that word and began to change the energy of it and manipulate it into a way that took the power from the people and placed it in the hands of something outside of themselves, so that there was a reliance on a system or a God outside of you that you had to shift into obedience to in order to find your way back to God, or to be accepted into what we call heaven when we leave this earthly realm. And it worked. The reality of it is that programming that was created worked for humanity. And for many thousands of years, society worked underneath this belief that God is up there in the sky somewhere watching over us, that's going to judge us, and we have to act according to what that God needs us to be in order to go back to it. And as we wake up in this time, in this new age, as we shift into the age of Aquarius, we are learning that God is not outside of ourselves, that it resides within us. We are God. And therefore, we have the same potential and power to shift our understanding and mindset to create and manifest our truth and reality without looking outside of ourselves for that information. Now, the amazing thing about this is that there are things that Spirit uses to help us come back into that remembering. And one of those is writing, is the biblical text. And this is something I've thought about for many years, especially when I was coming out of religion, was how the Bible would still be being written now had man not stepped in and said, you cannot add to this anymore. Like, this is it. This is all the truth that you're ever going to know for the rest of humanity. And that's just not true. Like, I think about the book that I wrote, Parables for a New Earth, and I think about how when I was channeling that book through the Wisdom Keepers, the messages that were coming through sounded a lot like what Jesus may have said, or a prophet or a psychic or a medium that lived 2,000, 2,500 years ago. And the messages are just more relevant for our current timeline than maybe the timeline that was being created at that rate. Not that that's not, in the consciousness, we won't go into this too much, but that timeline is still happening in a very parallel line to our timeline here. And so it's just like, if you see things as a progression of back to source, back to God, then you can see the progression in the energy field of how we have been disconnected from God and we're slowly moving back to God. We're coming back into the awareness of who we are based on a linear understanding, or we could look at it as going up, or even like a spiral that goes back to God, the energy goes back to source. So what Spirit showed me in my mind is that by manipulating and changing the text of the manuscripts and the tablets that were written on and the scrolls that were shared so many thousands of years ago, that those changed the energy of those texts that were channeled by those who channeled them at the time, and change the energetic codes of them to move more into a control system than a empowerment of self-empowerment. And so in many ways, it's not that man hasn't always known that there is something powerful about who we are. It's that those who that took that knowing shifted it into the human ego way and began to perform acts among humanity to trick them or to stop them from connecting back into their consciousness so that they could have power and control. And this is what we have seen on the earth for thousands of years. And this is why the battle, like even the biblical text says, we're not fighting against flesh and blood. That's why the battle is what we would call a spiritual battle. It's not even really like a battle. The battle is our own consciousness, is our own belief system, is our own energy. So what we're working against is not something out there. It's the belief and system that we have brought in about ourselves that we're rewiring and we're changing. And when we change ourselves, we change the outside reality. So it's, in some ways, if you look at it from kind of a perspective of God, like how genius to change text to get power. Like, to know that that was something you could do to change a light code within a word or within a sentence and just tweak it a little bit to take power from the people to yourself, to a hierarchical system, to a patriarchal system, to a system of poverty and rich, to the control that we see happening in the world right now actually being revealed in a new way. And so because the human consciousness is awakening and because we are learning more about ourselves, what we are actually seeing is that old system revealing itself, is coming to the light, and it's eventually what's in the energetic field is crumbling. It's is being broke down, because when you send more light into darkness, the darkness has to scatter. And so more and more light is coming into earth through earth herself and through the conscious mind of humanity. And as we hold our light, as we hold our truth, as we remember our power, that system gets shooken and has to move out of the way, because darkness cannot exist within light. And what we're doing is eventually manifesting a new reality, which we will eventually call New Earth. So really what is taking place is a whole bunch of people getting open information and downloads about themselves, which is then going to even lead to other reality consciousnesses that we, over hundreds of years, like humanity has kind of been contemplating even more, like, and particularly in the realm that we live in now. I think there's other timelines that have continued to understand that we are not the only beings in the universe or even in our galaxy. Like, we're coming into the understanding that there are extraterrestrials that support humanity, and that there are things beyond the conscious understanding of the realm that we have here on Earth, and that we have connections beyond the human race. We have connections beyond earthly understanding and programming. And this is just going to continue to be revealed more and more over this next couple years. There's been some information coming out about summer of 2026, and I have been told multiple times that 2026 is going to be like a huge energetic shift for humanity. What they've shown me personally is that there's going to be humans that move even more into a higher consciousness this year, and then by 2027, full disclosure is probably going to come forward of who we are, the information that's kind of been hidden from humans about the inner power that we possess. And once that information starts to come out, then humans are going to take that and be like, whoa, that makes sense. It's going to take a while for us to integrate the information, but we're going to be like, wait, this whole time I always had access to this. This whole time I always had this power within me. This whole time I've always been able to control my reality with my beliefs. I never had to be stuck in poverty. I never had to be stuck in this abusive relationship. I never had to be stuck in this job. I never had to be, this person or this role. I never had to hold this trauma in my energy my whole life. Like, we're waking up to the power we have to shift our own reality. And once the collective on a wider global scale comes into this awareness, everything changes for humanity. And this is why there's so much happening on the earth right now, because we are in the rebirthing of the consciousness of all beings on planet Earth. So, I think is exciting. I know that there are a lot of things out there going on that are not exciting right now, but I hope this gives you a little bit of hope about where we're going and a reminder to hold your light. That when you get information, when you remember something, it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel like, oh my God, I'm making this up, or I'm becoming too spiritual or too woo woo or too out there, or I think I see things, I think I hear things, I'm feeling things, I'm having things visit me in my sleep, like whatever that might be for you. One of the best things that you can come back into the awareness of is that when you came into this lifetime, when you were a child, you would have believed all that stuff without question until somebody told you not to. So, what we're doing, just like Jesus said, is going back to a childlike faith and understanding that reality is way beyond the perception that we have been taught it to be. And when we start to see physical evidence in our reality, then this integration is going to begin to shift quickly. And I am super excited for that day. It may not fully manifest in our current lifetime, but I do believe we will begin to see some of it take place. So I hope this is encouraging or helpful or educational for you in whatever way that is that you receive this today. And if you have any questions or you have any topics or you have anything that you want me to explore or ask the Wisdom Keepers or the team that I work with, I would be more than happy to do that. So I wish you the best day, night, evening, whatever time it is for you. I send you all the universal love. Namaste.